Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is African Americans and the Declaration of Independence, of course 1996, and of course we're going to talk about not only the impact of the Declaration of Independence and the period in which it was issued, but also the impact that the Declaration has on American society today. And with us to talk about African Americans and the Declaration of Independence is Dr.RMitchell1. Dr. Mitchell is the academic dean at Fisk University, as well as a professor of history at Fisk University, who is well published, we might also add. And of course with Dr. Mitchell is Ms. Linda Wynn. Ms. Wynn is the Associate Director for State Programs with the Tennessee Historical Commission. And let me welcome both of you to the program this morning. I think we also might add that Ms. Wynn is an adjunct professor at Fisk University, as well as being the person who has to do with state programs. Dr. Mitchell, let me have the two of you, you and Ms. Wynn, to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in leading you to the positions that the two of you hold today. First, we'll start with you, and then we'll have Ms. Wynn to give us the same kind of information. Then we'll get into our topic for the morning.
Thank you, Dr. Haney. It's certainly a pleasure to be here this morning. I'm a native Nashvilleian. I was educated in the Catholic and public schools of Nashville, and it's ironic that I'm back at Fisk University because I received my undergraduate degree at Fisk University. My first graduate degree from Tennessee State University, my doctorate from Middle Tennessee State University. I studied further at Memphis State, or University of Memphis, someone teasing, and finally I left the state long enough to go to Harvard and do some postdoctoral training, but I'm trained as a historian. I'm very fortunate. For about 25 years I've been teaching in classrooms as a college-level historian, and I've been a part of the administration at Fisk for the last 10 years. It's my pleasure to serve as executive assistant to Dr. Henry Ponder, the president, for 8 years. And this July, I'll be starting my 3rd year in the deanship at Fisk. So it's a pleasure. It's also been a pleasure over the last 20 years to be an acquaintance and friend of yours.
Very good. I appreciate that.
Thank
and
you.
Of course, Ms. Wynn, give us some information about your background and your career.
Well, first of all, let me also say that it was a pleasure for me to be here this morning. I, too, am a native Nashvilleian. I received my education in the public and private schools of Nashville. I did my undergraduate training, well, all of my collegiate training at Tennessee State University. I have a bachelor's in history and a master's in history, and also a master's of public administration degree, all from Tennessee State University. I presently am serving as the Assistant Director for State Programs with the Tennessee Historical Commission, and under that I'm responsible for the Historical Markers Program, budget preparation. It takes in the historic sites, publications. It runs a gamut of responsibilities.
Very good. You know, Dr. Mitchell, I think that before we get into the Declaration of Independence and 1996, let's have the two of you, about Fisk, and of course Ms. Wynn about the Tennessee Historical Commission, to give us some information about your university and her commission. Because I'm not sure whether our audience exactly understand.
Well, I hope that the audience appreciates the fact that Fisk has been located here in Nashville since 1866. Fisk is 3rd oldest among the historically black colleges and universities. Originally, Fisk was located near the present site of the Union Station, and it moved to its site it occupies now, Old Fort Gillum, a Union Army contraband camp, in 1873 with the construction of Jubilee Hall. Fisk is primarily and predominantly a liberal arts school. It trains people in the liberal arts. I think sometimes people, by the tag historically black, thinks that it may possibly only open to one race. But since Fisk opened its doors, it's had persons of every race who studied there, and especially with regard to the faculty. Today, Fisk University is 95% black, 3% white students, and 2% international students. Also at Fisk University, the faculty, which today is 45% white Americans, 6% internationals, and about 49% African Americans. It's a liberal arts institution which long has addressed the need of training black persons. Fisk is primarily a pre-professional school. About 65% of our students go on to graduate school. And according to the United States Department of Education, Presently, more African Americans who hold doctorates have studied at Fisk University than any other college in the nation, white or black.
Very good. And so it has a very deep tradition in terms of its service and educational service to the community.
And here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Very good. Ms. Wynn.
The Tennessee Historical Commission began in 1919, so it's not by any means a new state agency. It started out with the responsibility of collecting the records of veterans from of the First World War, and eventually its responsibilities were expanded to include publications, historical markers, and around 1966 its responsibilities were further expanded with the Historic Preservation Act of 1966. And with that expansion, we are also the agency that maintains and protects historic properties in the state. We add properties to the National Register of Historic Places, of which Fisk University is a National Historic, is on the National Register, and Jubilee Hall is one of the National Historic Landmarks, which is a different designation. It's just being on the National Register. We participate in the with the bicentennial, and 2 years ago our responsibilities were further expanded when the state legislature designated us as the Tennessee Wars Commission. So we carry on many responsibilities for an agency that is staffed by 15 persons.
Very good. Dr. Mitchell, you know, when we talk about the Declaration of Independence, a lot of people might not have a view of American history as perhaps the two of you have, been both trained historians. Let's have the two of you to give us some background information in reference to the American population and the situation that ultimately led to the Declaration of Independence in 1776.
All right, the American colonies of England, and that's what they were, initially began an economic struggle. The question of taxation had troubled the colonies to the extent that they were trying to make their voices heard. As everyone realizes and aware, this eventually erupted into a revolution. It didn't begin as a revolution. Most Americans at the time were proud of their English ancestry, but they didn't understand the fact that they must be taxed externally by England if they were a colony to provide the services which they needed. Primarily, they needed the services of an army to keep the Americans, the American Indians, from, and I may upset people with this, correctly responding. For 200 years, persons that came and taken their land pushed them further and further westward. By the 1770s, with the result of the French and Indian War and other activities, the Americans, the American Indians, were on the uprising. So an army was needed. Who would pay for that army? The British people felt they couldn't tax the people of the islands any more than they were already taxed. They couldn't tax them to pay for an army in America. So what really, I think, caused the American Revolution as much as anything was a breakdown in communication. There's often discussion of no taxation without representation. Well, the British felt that the Americans were represented in Parliament. They were English, and there were Englishmen in parliaments, they were represented. The Americans said we need direct representation. This would erupt into a revolution. And as the revolution grew and arms were taken up, there was the need to declare independence. This wasn't an act of illegality. The persons in America, the founding fathers or patriots, felt that they couldn't receive assurance under England, so they must separate. So to gain the respect of the rest of the world and to gain support, they declared themselves independent people.
Very good. And so, and of course, Ms. Wynn, what we'd like to do is to talk about the situation of various groups during this period, and we've got a short commercial break coming up, and I really didn't want to get into that and interrupt you, but when we come back from this commercial break, what we'd like to do is to have you to give us some information relative to the status of various groups involved in the period, so that we might be able to broaden this, so to speak. And we'll be back with you following this commercial break.